Hey everyone, here's a quick tutorial on how to use tool calling, aka function calling, in Retell AI with an actual application serving as the backend and with a demo of an integration to an external API. I've included all the code and prompts in a GitHub project so you can download, review, and use it as you like. The demo is a National Hockey League statistics agent that provides current stats of any NHL team for this season, as well as the agent's opinion on the team's play. As you can see here, I have it set up as a single prompt agent that's using GPT-4o Mini, one of the available voices, and English as a language. We have some context here, which has a list of current NHL teams to make sure that the agent has current knowledge, and then we follow with our task. Most of this is fairly standard, but I want to particularly take a look at this section here. To help the agent interact better, we have some one-shot prompting describing the JSON that our tool or function call will send back to the agent, and then some prompting on how we should deal with the response and what we would like the agent to say back once it processes it. That's here. I also want to point out something specifically in step 3, namely this right here, where we say to invoke the tool, or we could use the word function, call check statistics. This is the name that we have given to our custom function over here called check statistics. So let's take a look at that. So first, it's important that the name, which is here, matches what we have in the prompt. Next, it's also important that we use a description like this because it will be processed by the LLM when it determines what tools it will use. Next, we of course have the endpoint URL for our function call. As you can see, it's just pointed to URL on our server. It's important to keep in mind that these will always be sent over to the server as a post request. I have the API timeout set to the default. And then next we have probably what's the most important part of the tool or function call, namely the parameters and the JSON that defines those. In this case, we only have one parameter, the team identifier that the user has spoken. So for example, that could be the city of the team, or the full team name, or even a nickname, as I'll show you in a demo later. Following that, we give it a description here, which is used by the underlying system when determining what data to send to the tool call. And then we set that parameter as required, as we must have that to pull the statistics we're looking for. If you're looking to dive deeper into this whole JSON format and what it all means, it's important to know that it's modeled directly off of OpenAI's function calling. A link to that documentation is below and in the GitHub repo. A more advanced use case here, because we only have specific teams, would be to use an enum type for the team identifier, but that's something that I'll cover in another video one of these days. As you can see, we also have end call set up with the description that we give here, namely end the call if the user is done asking about team stats, or if the user indicates in any way they wish to end the call. That's just so that the agent knows when it's desirable to end the call, and if it were a real call with a phone, for example, it would hang up. Next, let's take a look at the code. So the code in this example is just a backend that uses FastAPI. You could use whatever framework that you like, as long as it can accept and reply to post requests, you'll be fine. So first, I'll just point out here on line 30 in my code that I'm importing Retell's SDK. The current version is 4.6.0, so you should install that in your virtual environment if you're using this code. Next, down in here in line 88, I just create a Retell client using my Retell API key. I have that set over in the settings.py. You can pull it in from an external file, or probably better for security reasons is to use OS environment variable. Next, for security purposes, I'm going to show you this down in line 118. This is just a function that accepts a request, but it verifies that the request is actually coming from Retell. So within the Retell SDK, they provide this function here for verification, and it uses the header xRetell signature. I have a link here where you can read more about that specific feature, but you can just know for now that webhooks as well as tool call requests are always signed with that xRetell signature, and you can verify it using the verify function within the SDK client. Also, as of right now, there is only a single IP address that any request would come in from. So for your firewall or whatever other security you're using, you can just set it to this IP address, and you'll know that that request is coming in from Retell. Right below this, we just have kind of a boilerplate piece of code here for handling Retell inbound webhook. So we verify the signature. If the signature is not valid, we log that and return a 401 unauthorized. Otherwise, we can extract data from the webhook, from data that's been posted, such as the event type, and we can log it. And of course, in a real application, we would probably be doing a lot more processing with that. Now, jumping down here in the code, I have the actual code for the tool call itself. Structured in the same way, we just receive a request inbound. We check that the signature is valid, that is, that it's signed with the correct header that matches our account. And then if everything's fine, we proceed by extracting the post data. Now, this is a very important thing to note. Whatever parameters are being sent in from the tool call will not be right in that main post data object. They're part of a dictionary called args. So we pull that using the standard Python get function. As you remember from earlier, the only parameter that we're sending over is the one called team identifier. So we extract the team identifier, and then we send it over to this function, get team stats. I'm going to scroll up to that. So basically, get team stats is just kind of a demo function of what you could do for an integration. In this case, we're accessing the NHL's API, their standings API here. And like you'd see in many normal use cases, you just use the Python request library to make a request, extract the data. You have some error handling here if you don't get a 200 success response code. We have the data here into a JSON object. We make the team identifier in lowercase just for simplicity. And then we just have some processing here that's specific to the NHL API. I want to make sure that, for example, if the person gave the place name, that is just the city, or the commonly known name, or the full name of the team, or even the team name in the French language, because we have teams up here in Canada that are in the French-speaking part of the country, that we match it that way. And then as you can see here, when we return the data back, it's matching the format that we mentioned in that zero-shot prompt. So namely the team name, how many games they've played, how many wins, losses, overtime losses, points, and their point percentage. We return that back to our tool call function and simply send it back right here, just as JSON, giving a success message, and having the team stats come back in JSON in the format, again, that was like that one-shot prompt. So back to here, we can do a quick demo. In this demo, I'll ask it for two different things. So in one, I'll use the actual team name for my favorite team, the Edmonton Oilers. But I'll also use a nickname, which it wouldn't know about without using LLM knowledge, for the Montreal Canadiens, namely the Habs. So I'll show you how that works.
Hello there. I'm excited to help you find out how your favorite NHL team is doing right now. Which team would you like to know about? You can tell me the city name, the team name, or both.
The Edmonton Oilers, please.
The Edmonton Oilers have played 8 games this season. They've won 3 of them, lost 4, and lost 1 in overtime. That gives them a total of 7 points and a points percentage of 0.4375. It's been a bit of a rough start, but there's still plenty of time to turn things around. Would you like to look up any other team stats?
Yeah, can you tell me how the Habs are doing?
The Montreal Canadiens have also played 8 games this season. They've won 3, lost 4, and lost 1 in overtime, which gives them a total of 7 points and a points percentage of 0.4375. Looks like they're in a similar spot as the Oilers. Would you like to check the stats for any other teams?
Nope, that's all. Thank you.
You're welcome. If you ever want to check in on your favorite teams again, just let me know. Have a great day.
And we can look on the NHL website now and make sure that she was correct. And sure enough, that's the current record for both the Montreal Canadiens and the Edmonton Oilers. 8 games played, 3 wins, 4 losses, 1 overtime loss each, 7 points, and 0.4375 or 0.438 rounded of points percentage this season. So that about sums it up. That's an example of doing a tool call with a backend platform like FastAPI, and then also accessing an external API within that platform to pull in data and then send it back to Retell for very intelligent processing by an agent. Now, one last piece here is that we can have a look at the tool calls that happened by going to the call history. So we scroll down here. We can see, of course, that the summary is correct. That is what I asked the agent. And then we can see the tool invocation here. So when I asked it for the Edmonton Oilers, it knew that I had asked about the Edmonton Oilers. And we can see the tool call result here is exactly as we'd expect as we saw in the code. So namely, we return a success response, and then we return that JSON object here with the team name, games played, wins, losses, OT losses, points, points percentage. When we go down here, we see that the transcription thought that I was saying halves, but the LLM is intelligent enough to know, given the context, I was referring to the Habs, aka the Montreal Canadiens. So we can see that the parameter it sent over was not Habs, but it was the correct team name. And as a result, we got the correct team stats for the season. So that about sums it up for a simple case of tool calling in Retell AI. As I mentioned, I have links below to the GitHub that has all the prompts and code, so if you'd like to review that, you absolutely can do so. And yeah, that's it. Good luck.